Welcome, friends. Whether you're out on a walk, running errands, or relaxing at home, it's wonderful to connect with you. Joining us today is Brianna Brown Keen. Now, I will tell you, Brianna is a Minnesota native. She's an award winning actress who has worked for over 2 decades in Hollywood with projects ranging from top grossing feature films to Emmy winning television shows to indie projects that she produced. She's often recognized for her roles on Dynasty, Devious Maids, General Hospital, and Homeland, and recently finished shooting season 4 of Netflix's hit series Outer Banks. Brianna, welcome to Phoenix and Flame.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
This is fabulous. Now, listeners, you also have to know that Brianna and I know one another through Mic Drop Academy. It was a wonderful time to get to know her and other wonderful speaker sisters, and we were put through it, let me tell you. It was wonderful and hard for 10 weeks. It was like going, how like when you go to camp with someone and you start out at camp and nobody knows anybody. And then after you've been at camp and you've been through all the mud piles and the sweating and the running around and the thorns and the cuts and the bruises and all the stuff, then after the end of the week, you feel like you're BFFs, right? Because you've been through all this together. That's sort of how us speaker sisters feel. Once we've graduated from the academy, it's like, okay, we're connected in a way that just is never going to go away. So Brianna, thank you for coming on Phoenix and Flame and spending your time with us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I couldn't agree more. It was so fun. And it's so odd how you can connect to someone virtually and yet feel that. But obviously this podcast shows that is totally happens and easy to access. I can't talk today.
No worries, girl. I'm going to be doing the same thing before the end of this podcast. That's a beautiful thing I love about at least my podcast is that we are just totally real. We are transparent. We make mistakes. We laugh. We move along because we're all the same. We're all doing the exact same thing.
I'm normally so eloquent. I'm like, oh, speaker sister, can't talk.
Oh, the irony.
But yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Got you. Now there's so much really. We were saying earlier, I don't even know hardly where to start because you have so much. Now I'm going to bring a few things in here just to kind of bring like topics, but then I want you to start wherever is comfortable for you and just kind of tell your story and kind of weave around because we've already mentioned the acting, but you're also founder and CEO of a nonprofit organization, The New Hollywood, which just that title is intriguing to me. I think that's definitely worth a discussion. You established that in 2006 and dedicated to supporting socially conscious storytellers and change makers through grants, goals, and mentorship. Okay, I could go on, but I'm going to stop talking so much because I really want to hear from you because all this is very interesting. So the New Hollywood, socially conscious storytelling, you can start there if you want, or you can Dana, I'm going to weave around to that, but I'd like to start back in the day. We need to get to know you and how did you get to be where you are right now and doing all the wonderful things that you're doing?
Yeah. It's so bizarre looking back because I never would have thought any of it. I mean, if we go way, way back, you need to understand, I didn't come from money. I didn't come from connections. I was from the suburbs of Minnesota. It was before the internet. I was looking for reps on a Yellow Pages, cold calling. And by the way, I never made a single middle school play because I was so stage fright. So it's not like, oh, I was the lead in all that wasn't what it was. And through my journey, I learned so many things about perseverance and specifically picking yourself up by your bootstraps and using obstacles as opportunities. And, I can go into whether it was being severely bullied when I was 14 to the point of nearly killing myself, to rising from the ashes from that, to moving out to Hollywood at 19, being told to sink or swim by my parents, to getting a back injury where I was told I would never run again. And that was my literally only tool for dealing with stress. And, and then how did I heal that? And, I learned that if I just kept trying to figure things out, things would manifest that I wanted. Hence the Manifesting Your Mission, which is actually a book that I wrote, a guidebook that I wrote. And, to kind of answer your questions, the New Hollywood, it is so like bold. And it was only because I'd had for the title. I mean, I'd had a group of women that I curated it for goal setting back when I was in my 20s. And I thought, I know that I'm better with leading a group. I know I'm good at facilitating groups. I'm good with people, and that helps me move forward. I played soccer when I was younger, like team, go team, right? Like that'll help push me. And community. And since I didn't have any community, I had to figure it out all on my own. Um, so through that, what formed as just a goal group, I then wanted to have a philanthropic aspect. I wanted it to be less about just us being our bold, whatever selves, and also a give back element, which then became the title, which was said in a meeting where someone said, "We're like the New Hollywood." And it struck me. And I thought, that's it. That's the name. It's so bold. And we started doing different philanthropic events to help, whether it was human trafficking victims, to homeless, to all sorts of the environment. We kind of went all over the place and did all sorts of different events over the years. And then later, I ended up dividing what became my coaching business, which is Manifesting Your Mission, with the New Hollywoods. The New Hollywood is solely the 501c3 nonprofit that's been established since 2006, which is almost 20 years.
Are you
And
shaking your head like,
I
has
know,
it really been 20 years? Like, how did that even happen?
yes, because coming on this January is 20 years. And through doing that, I then created a guidebook. Through doing that, I created a coaching program. Through doing that, and it was slowly. It's not like I did it all within 2 years. Um, and hence with like meeting and doing more speaking engagements, like, it's not like it happened immediately. It's just over time I was asked to speak at things. And I was actually asked to speak at an event, and the woman gave me the topic. She's like, "I'd like you to speak on manifesting your mission." And I'm like, that is a bold title. And then I thought, that's my title. And so then I ran with that because I was like, well, manifesting your mission is consciously creating your life, right? How do you do that? Goal setting, manifestation through visualization, working through your trauma, working through your limiting beliefs, and then, and then constantly pushing yourself forward, even when it's uncomfortable. And I would say, actually, especially when it's uncomfortable. So, there's a lot more like to fill in with my journey, but broad strokes, it's just been, I look back and I'm like, I can't believe that this little girl who had cystic acne, who got made fun of for wearing bad clothes, who was so, so shy, had zero self-confidence, who lost all of her friends from being bullied, when I was 14. I mean, my best friend, her father, was a judge. And I only mention this because I feel like if you're a judge, you should, I don't know, have good judgment, right?
Well, hence the name, yes.
Yes, right. Um, but her father, who was a judge, told her when we went into freshman year, because I was still being so severely bullied from 8th grade into 9th grade, and that's when middle school went into high school. He told her to stop being friends with me because he didn't want her to get bullied too. So that just goes to show how severe it was. It wasn't like, I got made fun of for my clothes. I mean, that sucks too, but it was severe. And my parents wanted me to move. I was like dead set on staying there, but it was, through this really difficult time, and actually a pinnacle of like, I don't want to do this anymore, meaning life. And I think it was complicated because hormonally at that age, I was put on Paxil, which later they found out created suicidal tendencies for adolescents, which they didn't know at that time. And then on top of which, like, I didn't have great life skills to cope with all of the what seemed an insurmountable amount of bullying, or the vandalism done to my house, or all the things that happened within a short period of time that just surmounted to like, I can't do this anymore. But I was hospitalized, and I was put in the hospital, a children's hospital, and the psych ward, and I wanted to be done. And, I remember distinctly being in my room because they take away your shoelaces. They take away anything that could, that you could use to kill yourself. And I remember being in there, and it was nighttime, and I remember banging my head on the ground, and like, because they didn't have anything, banging my head on the ground in the side of the side of the bed or whatever was going on. And I remember in that, I suddenly felt this calm white light, or I don't know, I just see it as it was like something went through me and I felt calm. And in that moment, my life changed. And I knew that I had a purpose. I didn't know what that purpose was, but I knew like I was going to be okay. And from that moment forward, I became an overachiever. And from that moment forward, I realized like I'm that path was done. Now that didn't mean like I wasn't like everything was magical and healed and perfect, but I was no longer suicidal. And I no longer wanted to kill myself.
So let me, because several things that you've said so far have spurred some comments and questions in
Yeah.
me. And because I really do so appreciate your being willing to be transparent and to share your true story, because I know I've been bullied before. It's a terrible experience, and I know there's other people out there that are going through harsh times that might be feeling suicidal right now, might know someone they love that is struggling with thoughts of not just wanting, they just don't want to be on this earth anymore. They're tired. They're tired of dealing with it. And so what I'm kind of wondering too, because I'm listening to you say this, and I'm, because I've seen your speaker reel, and we're going to give your, your CTAs, your call to actions at the end, your, so guys, you haven't seen it yet, but when you do, it's freaking amazing. And somebody's going to watch that and go, because I could see how someone would watch that, because this what happens to us sometimes when we're comparing and we look at other women, especially women looking at other women who are at that snapshot of their life are doing really, really well, and compare and think, gosh, I could never do, that's another category for me. I could never do like that. She's probably never suffered. I can't
Mhm.
get to where she is. And so that's why I really on Phoenix and Flame, I really love to hear the whole story and how someone started, and the flame that burnt them down, and what it felt like to be in the pile of ashes and how they pulled out of that, so we can all connect together and know, you know what, no matter what screenshots you see from a woman and wherever chapter she is in her life, we are all together. We are all connected. We are all going through very, very similar things. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar, so that we should support each other and encourage one another and think, you know what, we can help each other. And if we've made it through to a point, reach back with a hand and say, hey, let me help you, pull you along, which I feel like that's what you're doing. So one of the questions well, two questions actually. One is, what helped you to keep going when, because I heard you say multiple times you had multiple reasons to just F it, right? I'm effing tired. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to try anymore. This is too heavy. It's too hard. It's gone on too long. I don't have any community, like you said. I feel alone. So I'm curious about what helped you to keep going in those spots. And also, I would really like to hear you talk a little bit later about the limiting beliefs that
Yeah.
we end up having that keep us down when those beliefs are inside of us. They're not necessarily someone else keeping us down, it's us keeping ourselves down. So you
Right.
can answer however you want to answer those questions.
Yeah, I'm actually going to start with the limiting beliefs because I think that is actually the part of the root of why I do a lot of what I do, and I think it stems from my mom. And I love my mom. My mom, she's in a home right now in memory care, so she wouldn't be able to listen to this anyway. But um my mother, if there was a way for her to have gotten her doctorate in victimhood, she got several. Like she really went for it. And it was so frustrating for me as a kid because whenever she'd have a problem, it was, oh, woe is me, blah, blah, blah. And even as a kid, I would be like, well, mom, maybe you could try this, or maybe try this, or what about this, or da. And she was, because she's very smart, she would negate each one. Here's why this won't work. Here's why this won't work. Like anytime she loved a product, of course it would be, suddenly be unavailable anymore. I'm just like, wow, you really are attracting that. When I later understood more about that. But that was just her way of staying small and staying safe. And I understand the root of it. And the root of it has to do with her being an army brat and having to have like, it was really hard for her moving around and making new friends. And then also transgenerational trauma from my grandmother that was never dealt with, who was abandoned and was orphaned as a kid and told if someone doesn't adopt her as a child, they were going to give her to an orphanage. So this was happened at a church. So like you look at the generational like stuff and you say, okay, so this person has abandonment issues, this person has huge fears, and I had that myself, and I could see that some of it didn't belong to me, and truthfully, I don't think a lot of it belonged to me, because my mother and I were like oil and water. We were so different. I was more like my dad, and my brother was more like my mom. And so I think that like seeing her like not ask for the raise, her like, all the things like, oh, I don't like this about myself, and hating on herself. I just was like, I don't want to be that, even though I'm kind of like wired to be that way. So I had to work really hard to undo that way of being. And I think it was mainly to rebel. Like, right? Like I'm like, "Ugh, I'm not going to be like her." But even though there's lovely things about her, clearly, like I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for her. But though that I really disliked, and I disliked that in myself, and I really hated victimhood. And I was someone who, I didn't make the A team soccer. I was on the C team. I was bullied on the C team. And then I worked my way up, and I worked my way up, and I worked my way up. And then suddenly, a coach was asking me to play above my age level. And those people treated me like I was of that level and deserved to be. And I was able to play of that level because they believed in me. And so
Believed it, they
I got
expected that.
little, they expected it. They're like, oh, well, she's being brought up, she's going to be amazing. And then I would be, because I believed in it. And I would see the same with like acting and stage fright. Like, it's so much stage fright. And again, it didn't just magically go away. And I had to keep doing it over and over and over again, despite being uncomfortable. And I really do think that the art of it is consistently being like getting comfortable, consistently being uncomfortable.
Mm. I love that.
Right?
I
Like
love that.
it's
So
have
true.
you just have to do it over and over and over again. And when it doesn't work out, you figure out another way. And I think honestly, the blessing of not having like a formal education beyond a little bit of college is it taught me that there's always a way, and it may not look the same as in that box. So I have a lot of clients who are Ivy League. This is someone who in India who owns a college, and I'm helping them be able to think outside the box to get from point A to point Z or wherever they wanted to get.
Right.
Because sometimes we have a limited idea that there's only one way. I'm not saying formal education isn't super important, because I'm constantly learning and educating myself. but but I think like being willing to look at things from different angles and say, oh, I failed, okay, get up, what I learn, okay, how do I pivot and polish, okay, now I'll try it this way. I think, to answer your second question, uh tenacity, grit, and being really stubborn. I think, I think one of the best things that my grandmother ever did was try to guilt me into coming home. Because early on to me moving out to Los Angeles at 19, she was suddenly, I mean, she kept all of her children within a very short radius. Like I was the first one to go, it was phone calls, it was cards, it was just total manipulation. And that just really was like, you
Get like hell to the no. I'm not.
well, no, to the point where I had to have I called my dad and I said, if she keeps doing this, I will never speak to her again. And he knew that I was like him. And he's like, uh-oh. And so he called my grandfather. My grandfather had to have a talk with her, because it made no sense. I was like, come on, I didn't even see you that much when I was in Minnesota. Like, we're not, it was a control issue.
Mhm.
So for her. And so I think like, I was like kind of dead set. Like, I have to do this. I have to figure it out. I also think, the blessing was when I first was brought out to Los Angeles, I had success. So when I first came out, I was kind of coddled. Because they brought me to auditions and things like that. And I'd already screen tested for a big movie opposite Chevy Chase. I didn't get it, but it was like, it gave me a lot of confidence. And
Absolutely.
suddenly, like, I booked a family film in Romania. It is not a family film worth watching. It's kind of terrible, but I did this, I
Good
did this.
experience.
Yeah, it was, oh my God, it was a great experience. I did this family film. I was the first line in Freaks and Geeks, if you saw that cult classic of a TV show. And they, tested me for other parts in it, but I was clearly not like established enough. I was too green. But and so I got some stuff. So when I actually moved out and had to do it all on my own, when it was the sink or swim time, I knew I was capable. but I then had to work through so many things. I mean, adulting wasn't a term then because you just had to be an adult.
But it totally, ugh, yes.
You know, you just had to be an adult. And but having to figure out finances, how to figure out like all of these things. And then suddenly because of stress and not knowing how to handle certain things, I injured my back. I bulged 3 discs in my back. I was told I would never, run again. I had to figure out how to do that, like navigate the disability. Like I was on disability where you make no money and trying to figure out how do I do this? And I wasn't trying to leech off the system. I was like, I just want my back to be better. So I saw like, okay, this is what it could be. And then I'm suddenly in this demographic of like, sitting in a doctor's office for 7 hours trying to have a doctor look at me to basically say, yeah, you still are, you still have a bad back. And I'm
See,
like, but
I want to point out here, Brianna, that you you have been manifesting your mission virtually your whole life, and you seem to be very solution focused, and almost probably because of your mother's victim status. And I've shared before on my podcast, and guys, I mean, we're like the same. And we know this because we had that coffee chat together earlier, a few months ago. So I've been sitting here watching you talk, and I feel like all my words are just coming right out of your mouth. It could have been the exact, I mean, 80 to 90% of what you said fits exactly my walk. And so to me, hearing you talk, it's like you decided that you are going to be solution focused and not problem focused. You were not going to be the victim. And so whenever something, because I'm hearing you talk about and describe what it was like to have your injured back and be on disability and going to spending hours and hours in the doctor's office. Well, there's a lot of people that would reach that point and they would just stop. That's what the rest of their life would be. Okay.
yeah,
And I'm not judging that. I'm not judging that. I'm just simply observing that people are walking different paths of life. And so, but on this podcast, we try to reach out and connect and encourage one another. So I'm hearing you say that you were in that spot, but you were focused on how can I find a solution? How can I keep moving? Like you said earlier, resilience and grit, and trying to find a different way. If the door number one doesn't work, then what's door number two? Is there a door number three? And keep trying to open up different doors until you find one, because you were focused on, I'm going to find a solution. I'm
but
not going to be a victim. I'm going to find a solution.
yes, but I also want to say it's okay in the journey to have despair, right? Like I had despair going through disability, spending hours trying to go through a lawsuit to try and get the money to heal my back because it was a work injury, and like dealing with people who were basically saying I was lying. And I'm like, I'm not lying. I remember there was a doctor because I went to their doctors because the whole system's so
Yes.
messed up. But I went to their doctors and they kept just basically running me around, not helping me at all, just hoping that I would just give up and
Mm-hmm.
quit the job and move on. And, I remember this one doctor and she's like, well, you have this mobility and you have this, and it seems like you're fine. And I'm like, I can't do this without like massive pain. Like this is not, not like what you're saying. And so and then she kind of insinuated that I was lying. And I remember I burst into tears and I said, I went to a private liberal arts college. I could be anything I want. I'm not trying to use this to get money. Like I had to and I'm crying. I'm like, I could do this. I'm not. And then she's like, all right, I'm going to get you an MRI. And then finally I got an MRI and like, yeah, she has 3 bulge discs. Like this is a legitimate injury. Like I wasn't just like, I just don't want to work. I want money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that then became like, once I knew that, then I had to continue going through the lawsuit. But then the lawsuit kind of puts you in a mentality of don't get better. If you
Yes.
get better, you don't get
Money.
you don't get your money. And so that was a really funky place to be in. And I remember talking about it a lot, just starting to like really identify with the injury. And it got called out to me where someone was like, my manager, like, you talk about it a lot. And I was like, huh, interesting. And anyway, but of course I did. This is what I was raised to do, right? You have a problem and you just then identify it, that the problem is what it is, right? You have someone gives you what do you call it? Like my mother, when she got diagnosed with a disease, she's like, well, this is what I have. I'm like, well, there are things you can do. And she's like, well, no, this is just what I have. So, anyway, so I realized like once the lawsuit was finished and I had the money, which wasn't a lot of money, But, in retrospect, I don't know if it was worth it, but I didn't have any support from my family to like go to alternative therapies to help my back. And I didn't even know where to start. Cause again, I was 19. Um, so I then was like, I'm going to acupuncture. I'm going to these different things. And it was actually acupuncture and Qigong that found this incredible man who's from Japan, and he'd helped my cousin, and he literally helped heal my back. And then, since then I've ran half marathons. I played on a soccer league for a minute, like I ran a marathon. Like, so that like made me realize like, if any ailment, I can try and find something. Now, is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to be cheap? Probably not. Right? Like, I had to spend thousands of dollars going to this man to heal my back, but I did. And so, like, to go to your point, like, it's okay to have despair in the journey and feel like I can't do it anymore. Like, I think that's normal. We have to feel all the feelings to get through it. But then at a certain point, say, but what if there's something I don't know? Right? Like, I have a theory that if something isn't working in my life, it simply means that there's something I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we have part of the same brain. I
Yeah.
when I with my patients, I say this. I'm like, if you're confused about something, it's just because there's a piece that you're not aware of. Because once we have all the pieces, everything makes sense. So if
Yeah.
we don't understand something, it's just simply because there's a piece we don't have yet.
Yeah. But then also to kind of go to your boundaries that you were talking about, because I think that's so important. So much of our energy siphoned off if we don't have boundaries, or we get, I remember trying to rescue so many of my friends, especially when I first came out to Los Angeles, because I was wanting community and I wanted to have friendships, or I wanted to feel loved and, in a relationship, and I would overgive, or I would give to my detriment. That was really what it was, giving to my detriment.
Mm.
And not knowing how to have healthy boundaries, and not knowing how to, like, really healthy boundaries equals self-love, right? Like, if you love yourself, you're going to set up boundaries. If you don't love yourself, you're not going to be surprised when someone's abusing you, because you're like, well, I guess I deserve it, or you're not going to be strong enough to leave. um I see that with some of the women that are in one of the programs in my nonprofit, which is the Teenage Accountability Program that helps formerly homeless single moms. And sitting there and dealing with so much of it, I'm like, well, yeah, you've been in an violently abusive relationship because you don't love yourself, right? Like, but yeah, you grew up in an orphanage. So, your version of love is not, there's different versions of what normalcy is, so when I can see it so boldly with that community.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more discreet when you go through the ranks of like different people's experience. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think, and you're obviously the expert of the queen of boundaries, but I think it's a constant refinement.
Hmm. Yes, and there's a lot of myths about boundaries. But to your point about the communities, I teach the boundaries component of the Magnolia Project. It's a group of women that it's a class, a course they go through. It's 13 weeks, and they have different classic levels, like learning how to have community resources, learning how to do a budget, all these things. Jennifer Ritter is the one that kind of set that up, and she recruited me to do the boundaries thing, because like you were saying, many times they are in relationships with people, frequently men, but not always, that are treating them badly, that are abusing them. They don't know how to say no. They don't feel like that they're worth anything. And so it was an honor to be able to take my presentation and present it to them, and to see them apply it, and then come up to me after graduation and say, everything is different now. It's just, I never thought my life could be this way, and now I know I can say no, I can set my boundaries, I can fill myself up, and it's wonderful. So
Yeah.
in our last minute or so, because gosh, there's so much. Do you want to focus on manifesting your mission, or is there something else that you would rather focus
Whatever
on?
you want. Whatever you want.
There's just, I feel like I'm standing at a buffet, it's just like, well, there's so much to talk about. Well, okay, let's just end up with manifesting your mission. Tell us a little bit more about that. And I think your podcast. You have your own podcast called Manifesting Your Mission, and I think I'm supposed to be a guest on there
Week.
next week. Yeah. So that's gonna be fun. So, what do you want to leave my listeners with on why you're willing, because clearly you're busy and you've got a lot of energy, you've got a lot going on, you've built your life into this wonderful thing. Why are you willing to spend your precious time and energy to focus on manifesting your mission?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, to kind of go back to when I was so lonely and needed community, and then to curate community of other amazing women. And at a period of time I had men in there as well in our community. I still have men in my community, just not in that mastermind goal group that I have. Um, but I realized, like, we rise together, right? I want, like, the team. I want to be around other people who are not just, you know, selfishly about themselves, right? I see plenty of that in Hollywood. Clearly, like, narcissism is applauded. But, the essence of all that I've done, whether it's the new Hollywood or manifesting your mission, really goes down to, and this for those that are on YouTube, if you can see it, it says rise higher, shine brighter, give back. And so I really believe if we are all living our purpose, whatever that purpose is. And by the way, being the purpose doesn't need to go be an astronaut. It can be being a conscious, loving mother, or, whatever, be, really working within your craft of your career. That if we're all living our purpose, we will have a healthier, kinder, more peaceful planet. And so I know the more that I help others, and, within my boundaries, right? Within my boundaries,
You're
that,
hysterical.
right? The more I do that, then the more I'm uplifted. Right. And it keeps me in that state of love and creativity. And, I just, Marie Forleo talks about being like, a multiple passionate person. And I feel that way too. I'm very creative. I like to create with people that have high energy, high vibration, that have a purpose, that want to give back, but also, like, want to push themselves. And so, just like that soccer team that I got to go a grade older, and I got to start and be like, I want to play up a level, and they believe in me, and then I believe in them. So, I remember when I started to do my podcast, I'm like, oh my God, I don't love technology, and like, I'm like, right? All of these things, I have all this resistance. I'm like,
So true.
instead of learning the technical stuff, I'm like, I'm gonna make sure my backdrops, the color for my color palette. Like, I mean, just, yes, that's important, but is it the most important? But I then did it. I'm like, okay, great. Now I know how to do it. And similarly, like, yeah, I've done some keynote speaking. All right, I want to do that more. Okay, I'm gonna push myself to be and to go and to do it more. And then within, X amount of time, it'll be completely second nature. So I think if we all, again, put ourselves into community that helps us rise to what it is that we think we have potential for, and just be like, well, what's the worst thing that happens? We fail. Okay, then we get up and we learn again, and we keep trying. Right? You don't learn anything if you don't push yourself. Again,
That's it.
and so, I don't know what it's going to look like in 20 years from now, but I never thought that I'd write a guidebook that's like 350 pages. I never thought that I would do any of these things, but it just, then I was like, felt drawn to, like, now I need to do it. I'm like, okay, and I'm going to do this. And I'm going to figure it out.
That is amazing. Now, I want to make one last comment before I wrap this up. We just need to be honest. And we were around a lot of women in Mic Drop Academy that were amazingly talented and multiple gifts and powerful. If people like that, like us, don't set boundaries, then we get kind of sucked down the drain because, like you said earlier, about high frequency, people that function on a high frequency, which I believe that we do, it's like people get drawn to us like moths to flame. And I've noticed this. I've been trying to reach out and connect with people, and it's just kind of, you have to be able to have a stop where you have to nourish yourself so that you can keep going with all of your wonderful talents and skills and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, has that been your experience?
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if you know of Alison Armstrong and her gender dynamic materials, but she talks about that in just kind of biologically, women tend to overgive because of the caretaking role and being multitaskers, whereas men are much more aware of how much energy they have and how much they'll preserve, which is why it's easier for them to set a boundary or to be more focused because they're more single focused. If
Yeah.
it goes down to like hunting, or just like if it goes down to like if you think of yourself back in that more tribal days. And so one of the things that she talks about, which I learned, which I thought was really interesting, is that as women, we have to actually kind of cut ourselves off from how much we give. So instead of giving 110%, I mean, sometimes I think there's a need for that, right? Like
Mhm.
you're in crisis or something. But if that's your go-to, you're going to be burned out. You're going to have health issues. I had health issues because of burning the candle at both ends. So I'm more hyper aware of it now, that you can't I'm not a Duracell battery that doesn't need to be recharged. Like I got to recharge. And so, I think it's interesting to be like, all right, I will give 75%, or, even in like the, time management that I do within my guidebook, or when I'm coaching with people, I'm like, okay, well, if you are a parent, then you got a whole other level of tasks that you have to do when school's out, and you want to be present for that and not be depleted when you're suddenly being, it's that moment that they're going to ask that big question. And that you need to be present for it and not irritated and exhausted because of pickup and making a dinner and da, 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 da. Like, right. So how much energy are we giving to all the things? How much can we realistically do within a period of time? And I think
Mhm.
for women, we've kind of set ourselves up for failure in that we're supposed to do all the things effortlessly all the time. And I think if you can do slow growth for some of the bigger things, then you won't be as exhausted. But that's a craft in and of itself. So,
It
you
is.
know, um, when it comes with other women in high vibration, like I'm really big into energy work. Like I actually am a Reiki 2 practitioner. Like I'm going to be working on being a Reiki master next year. It's on my goals. And it is. We're doing long distance Reiki too, like starting in the fall. Like I already have it planned out. My husband's like, "What are you?"
I love it. I love it.
But I need things that like ground me and keep me grounded. And also, so I'm not absorbing, because I am really empathic. I am really intuitive, and I am sensitive. And, we need those tools in our toolbox that we go to religiously to get ourselves, to a good starting place. Now that's whether that's your faith, whether that's inspirational books, whether that's being out in nature. I mean, truthfully, it should be like all that
All of it.
and more. But what are those things that help us? And so, to kind of to go to what you're saying, I think if we can be honest with each other, especially as women, that it's not like effortless. Like, yeah, I do a lot of things and I delegate out a lot. Like, I don't personally do all the things. I manage a lot. And that's how I can do a lot.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the thing that a lot of women think is like, well, I need to do all the things all at once. And it's just not possible.
No. Well, you know what? I I know that my listeners are thinking, "Geez, Brianna's amazing, and I need to get more of her. I want to find out more about her." And guys, you absolutely need to go to her website and see the speaker reel. It's amazing. So, where do you want them to go? Because you've listed several websites,
Okay, I'll
and
tell you.
I'll put them all. We'll put all on the show notes. But which one? Where do you want them to go mainly?
Okay, so I think for manifesting your mission. So manifestingyourmission.org,
Okay.
that has all of the stuff that I'm talking about with the guidebook and coach. If you sign up for my newsletter, when I start doing my Reiki 2 Reiki 2 long distance healing, you'll now know about it in the fall. Uh but also on top of that, I have my Brianna Brown Keen, which is my acting website.com. And then my New Hollywood, thenewhollywood.org. And it's really fun. We do fun events to fundraise. Like we're going to be doing a silent disco to raise money for the nonprofit. So like we try to build community to create community. Right. Like,
I love it.
so bringing good people together. So any of those places, join the newsletters, stay in touch. I'm mainly on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok, and LinkedIn and X, but it's at Brianna Brown Keen. And yeah, keep in touch. Reach out to me, send me a message, and I would love to hear how
Gotcha.
all of you go from rise from the ashes, right? From like in Phoenix.
This is fabulous, Brianna. I really do appreciate you taking some of your precious time and your energy and bringing it here with me and my listeners and sharing your story and your transparency and your vulnerabilities and all the wisdom that you gleaned with us. Thank you very, very much. So take this episode, copy and paste the link, send it in a text, send it in an email, put it on your favorite social media platforms. We need to spread the word, grow our Phoenix and Flame community so we can let people know you are not alone.